Look into a mirror now, not to admire, not to check a hair, but to ask, what if that glass could show you what has always been steering your life from the shadows? What if the moment your pineal, your inner antenna, wakes, that reflection stops being a surface and becomes a reveal? Patterns, entanglements, unseen architecture. The mirror becomes a doorway. The pineal becomes the key. Together they let you see what prayer as pleading never reached. Many of you have learned to ask. You've learned to kneel, to beg, to plead, to present needs in tidy lists. Sometimes those prayers seem answered. Often they feel like shouting into a void. The voice on the other end is quiet, or cold, or simply absent. That silence isn't always judgment. Frequently, it is a miswired channel. Supplication without alignment can sound to reality like static. Lots of signal, no code. You can stand at a locked door and push for hours. If you never turn the key, pushing will exhaust you, but it will not open the door. This message is not an attack on sincere prayer. It is an alternative operation. Think of biblical miracles not as arbitrary exceptions to the way the world works, but as instructions, precise interventions that restored a corrupted circuit to its original frequency. Consider the story of Lazarus. Canonical in outline, Jesus called, and Lazarus rose and came out. I am not rewriting scripture. I am offering one interpretive lens. What if that scene is not only an act of compassion, but also a demonstration of a procedure for reconnecting a fractured system to source? If you accept that as interpretation, esoteric, not historical assertion, then the memory of that procedure is a map you can learn. We will work inside a practical frame that borrows language from Gnostic practice, because it maps neatly onto the problem we face. Brief definitions first, so we share a vocabulary. Monad, the primordial source, the originating signal of being. Call it Source God, the one within your own center. Demiurge, the corrupt architect, the emergent structure that has imposed limits and definitions on matter and identity. Not a caricature of religion, but the systemic skeleton of misdirection and false rules. Archons, interfering forces or patterns that maintain the simulation's immunity and keep attention captive. Think less of cartoon villains and more of automatic responses, institutionalized narratives, and psychic habits that block clear reception. Hylics are those whose identity is bound to material narratives and who do not perceive the inner spark. Pneumatics are those who carry the divine spark sense, a latent orientation towards source. These are working metaphors intended to clarify mechanisms, not to condemn people. Also note, the pineal here is used as both image and correlate. Scientifically, it is a small gland in the brain. Esoterically, it has long been described as an antenna or inner eye. We will treat it as a biological correlate and an experiential center, a place you can learn to sense, tone, and bring to resonance. And the mirror functions both literally, a small handheld reflector you can use to focus, and internally, as a reflective chamber in your chest that reveals how the invisible maps your life. This pairing, mirror plus pineal, becomes the operational image for the work. 3 principles will hold this practice steady. First, recognition. Before any purposeful shift, something must be remembered. You must recognize that you are not merely an organism reacting to circumstance. You are a point of origin, a carrier of a signal. Second, authority. This is not arrogance but recovered identity. Once you recognize the spark, you can claim your frequency. Authority is the activation of your center, the alignment of your voice with origin. Third, command. Once recognition and authority are in place, a precise surgical phrase, spoken from that recovered center, becomes an instruction to reality, not a plea. This is not magic guaranteed. It is a protocol. You issue the code, you release it, and then you allow the system to respond. Results will vary. What changes first is internal coherence, which often precedes outer shifts. Now we map each key to the mirror and to the pineal, and then we give the body the choreography it needs. Recognition. Stand before the mirror, or seat yourself and sense an inner mirror room behind the sternum. If you wish, take a small handheld mirror. Hold it close, palm down, above your heart or in your lap. Look past your face. Instead of naming flaws, feel for a visceral recollection, a warmth, a lightness, a subtle sense that you are more than skin and schedule. If you prefer internal work, close your eyes and imagine a small circular room just behind your breastbone. A polished, calm chamber. This is your mirror room. It reflects back not your social roles, but your origin imprint. Let memory surface. You are not only what your life says you are. Authority. Bring attention upward, toward the subtle point behind the center of the skull, where the pineal is housed. You may feel nothing, a tingle, a pressure, or a cool awareness behind the forehead. This is normal. Begin to breathe gently into the chest, as you would into a flute. Inhale into the ribs so the heart room expands. Exhale a lengthened, soft release. With each cycle, imagine the pineal receiving a narrow beam of light from the monad. Do not force. Your intention is to create a channel. The mirror room should feel slightly brighter, the angles clearer. Speak inside yourself the claim. I am not only my body, I am a signal. The voice is steady. You are not demanding. You are acknowledging a fact that has always been true. Command. Once the recognition settles into the chest and the pineal picks up the faint beam, you speak a short surgical declaration. Not a litany, not a lament. The words are simple because they are not what alters reality. Your state does. Here is the template we will use aloud in the guided practice. But first let me give you the safety frame. If you have cardiovascular, neurological, or psychological conditions, proceed gently. Adapt breathwork as needed. Stop any practice that makes you dizzy or unwell. I will now give you the full protocol as a sequence you can test. This is practical. Disconnect, descend, resonate, invoke, release. Disconnect. Do not try to annihilate thought. That is a battlefield you will lose. Instead, change the axis of attention. Imagine static, a radio full of voices. Shift the dial away from content toward sensation. Name nothing. Allow the body surface to be noticed without commentary. The weight of your hands, the sense of the floor beneath your feet, the temperature of the air. A useful micro-move. Exhale fully and let the next inhale be half the speed of your usual breath. Let tension fall simply by being aware of it. Descent. Visualize the elevator. You are at the head of the elevator in the chest area. Press the inner button labeled Mirror. With each breath, the elevator descends. Your awareness lands in that mirror room behind the sternum. The room may be small. It may feel vast. Sit in it. This descent bypasses the frenetic head noise and places you where memory and identity meet. If you are using a real mirror, place it lightly on your lap so its reflection sits under your sternum. Imagine the glass turned inward so it reflects your interior rather than features. Resonance. Here is the somatic key. Bring a sustained, soft hum or an internal tone. It can be imagined if you prefer silence. The point of resonance is to create coherence between heart and pineal. Place one hand on the sternum and the other lightly on the forehead if you want a tactile cue. Inhale for a count that feels comfortable, then exhale while imagining the sound vibrating from chest to skull. You are not chanting to coerce. You are tuning. You may feel a shift, a quieting of urgency, a broadening of attention, a faint inner light behind the eyes. Invoke. From this tuned place, speak the procedural declaration. Keep it brief. Use clear declarative language addressed to monad. You may speak the exact words I will give, or you may use your own that carry the same structure: presence, authority, alignment, release. Here is a surgical formula you can use now when you practice later. Monad, I stand in your presence. I reclaim my authority as your expression. The pattern of limitation overstate your intention briefly and without drama, e.g. this blockage or this situation, dissolves into alignment. Let what is true be restored. It is done. Keep the intention concise. If you name a situation, use a single short phrase. Avoid narrative. You are issuing code, not telling the story. After you speak, exhale fully and let go. Do not watch the door. Release attention from outcome. Treat doubt as ambient weather. Notice it, then return to neutral observing. Release. This last move is non-negotiable. Immediately after the invocation, drop the monitoring. Do not mentally replay the words, nor do you analyze sensations for proof. The system processes what it receives on its own timeline. Hold your posture for a moment, one more full breath, and then resume ordinary activity with a slight softening of intent. The energy you hold now is different, less pleading, more stable. That steadiness is the point. A short practical version to test in 2 minutes. Sit, exhale completely. Place your hand on your sternum. Take 3 slow breaths. Imagine a small reflecting room behind your chest. Sense a beam to the pineal. Speak one concise line of command. Release. That alone is enough to know you have engaged the protocol. Expect interference. The system will often push back when you change a resonance. This is not a moral failing or a sign you did it wrong. Archons, the word we use to describe interfering forces or entrenched patterning, act like immune responses to alteration. What does that look like? Doubt flares as internal criticism. Old stories replay in the mind. Sleepiness or agitation arises. External events may escalate briefly. Arguments, tests, setbacks. Call this demolition. When a wall comes down, dust falls. Dust unsettles you, but it is not the wall. If you notice a surge of doubt, treat it as noise. Return to your breath and to the mirror room without capitulation. The practical instruction: name the feeling. This is interference. Then re-establish your center with 1 breath into the chest and 1 soft hum. There are 3 reliable signs that the line is responding, though timing varies, and none should be read as a guaranteed promise. Collapse, echo, neutrality. Collapse. Structures that once held you rigidly begin to fall. This can be sudden. An old habit loses its charge. Or slow. The tightness in your chest loosens over weeks. Collapse is demolition, not ruin. It may feel destabilizing at first. Support yourself with grounding practices and community. Echo. Small synchronistic patterns begin to appear. You notice repeated numbers, phrases from strangers, or others mirroring language you have used inside the practice. Echo is the system repeating your signal back to you in different registers. It is confirmation, but not proof of final outcome. Neutrality. A deep, non-reactive calm settles in the place where there once was agitation. Decisions feel less fraught. You notice that outcomes have lost their weight as identity markers. This neutrality indicates that the inner circuit has realigned. The spotlight no longer swings wildly in response to external stimuli. Interpreting setbacks. Sometimes nothing dramatic happens outwardly. That silence may simply be latency, a pause for integration. Treat it with patience. Resist the narrative that nothing worked. Subtle internal shifts often precede visible change. If weeks pass with no observable movement, yet with increased inner quiet, that is a form of forward motion. Ethical notes. Never issue a command designed to harm, to coerce another's will, or to control outcomes in ways that violate consent. This protocol is for restoration, bringing a corrupted pattern back toward its original harmonics, not for overriding another person's autonomy. Also, do not replace medical care or professional advice with this practice. If you have a serious medical or psychiatric condition, adapt breathwork and consult with your healthcare provider. Now a brief guided version you can follow when you are ready. Find a comfortable seat. Lower the lights if you prefer. If you have a small mirror, place it on your lap or at your sternum. If not, imagine the mirror room. Close eyes if that helps. Exhale slowly. Place your right hand on your sternum and the left hand lightly on the center of the forehead, or palms on knees, whatever supports you. Breathe in, 2 counts. Breathe out, 4 counts. Do this twice. Allow the mind's narration to become a softer background. Picture an elevator in your chest. Press the mirror button and descend. Feel the air change as you enter your inner chamber. Sense a small light at the center of the skull, a gentle antenna. Breathe into the chest so the light brightens with each inhale. Allow a soft hum to arise, silent in the mouth if you wish, imagined vibration if you prefer. Let that hum link chest to skull. When you feel steadier, speak to Monad with clarity. Monad, I stand in your presence. I reclaim my authority as your expression. The pattern of limitation over brief phrase dissolves into alignment. Let what is true be restored. It is done. Exhale fully. Release the hands. Sit quietly for 30 seconds, observing without commentary. When you are ready, open your eyes and place one practical foot in your day. Make a small, ordinary decision. The practice is most powerful when it re-enters life. If you want to anchor this moment publicly, and you may skip this if you prefer privacy, type in the comments, I activate sight. That short phrase will function as a communal anchor. If you choose to write it, do so now. A few cautions about the inner landscape. Some people experience brief disorientation, images, or emotional surges. These are often the system rearranging itself. If any experience feels overwhelming, stop and breathe. If you feel faint, sit or lie down. If you have a history of trauma or dissociation, consider working with a trained practitioner who understands somatic grounding. A word about Jesus and biblical demonstration. When we reference stories like Lazarus, we are offering an interpretive lens, seeing those passages as coded demonstrations of realignment, rather than as propositions about how history unfolded. This is an esoteric reading intended to extract functional mechanics, recognition, authority, command. I do not claim definitive historical claims about the canonical text. I use the story because it shows an application of regained authority in a narrative the tradition preserved. So how do you continue beyond a single invocation? Practice regularly, but briefly. Micro sessions, 2 to 5 minutes, tend to be more sustainable than marathon rituals. Test the line with weekly small requests, clarity for a decision, increased stamina for a task, emotional ease in a tense relationship. Keep your phrasing tight. Avoid grand narrative. The protocol rewards focus. Also integrate mirror work into ordinary life. Use a literal reflective surface when you need to remember identity. Quietly look into your eyes and allow the mirror to show more than features. Ask, what is the shape of my attention? Over time, you will notice patterns that were previously invisible. The same phrasing others use around you. Recurrent emotional triggers. The architecture of your fears. Seeing them makes them manageable. Some of you will ask about skepticism and doubt. Skepticism is useful when it keeps you honest. Doubt is a different animal when it seeks to paralyze. Treat skepticism as diagnostic. Test the practice and gather evidence. In your testing, track internal changes, sleep, appetite, decision-making ease, before expecting visible external shifts. Document echoes and collapses with a simple journal. Date, request, internal sensation, external event. Over months, patterns emerge that show whether the line is responding. A final small story to illustrate the difference between supplication and operation. A colleague once told me that for years she had begged for steady work. Her prayers felt like throwing letters into a storm. She learned the protocol, a short daily practice of descent, a 5-word command about alignment, and then release. Within weeks, she reported a series of minor but unmistakable echoes. An acquaintance mentioned an opening. An old client resurfaced. A timing shifted so that she was available for an opportunity. None of these were dramatic miracles. They were restorations of access to an ordering she had been missing. Perhaps nothing different would have happened without the work. Perhaps something would have. The meaningful change was inward. The desperation dissolved. That neutrality, she said, was the first gift. The openings followed. Remember, restoration is not exception. It is recalibration. You do not force reality to comply so much as you rejoin your original frequency. The mirror reveals the invisible patterns that kept you from connecting. The pineal wakes to receive and translate the source signal. Together, they restore access. One more time, the miniature script you can use when you have 2 minutes. Exhale fully. Place hand on sternum. Imagine the mirror room. Breathe into the chest. Sense the pineal. Speak the line once. Monad, I stand in your presence. I reclaim my authority. Alignment is commanded. It is done. Release. Resume life. Observe. If you practice, keep records and be gentle with expectations. Avoid promising yourself guarantees or persuading others to take risks. This work is about recovery, the recovery of identity, of authority, of signal, not about coercion or control. When the mirror clears and the pineal wakes, you will begin to recognize the invisible forces shaping your life. You will see the scripts you were given and the locks you accepted. You will not be instantly free of consequence or pain, but you will begin to act from a center that remembers origin. That center speaks differently, not with bargaining, but with precise instruction. That is the faith that works like a circuit, not like pleading. If this teaching has resonated, and you want to continue practicing and learning practical operations for pineal activation and mirror work, subscribe to continue this series on pineal activation and mirror work. Come back, test with us, share what you find. Go now, practice gently, and treat doubt as passing weather. The mirror is waiting, and the antenna is already there, quietly listening.